Welcome to Launching Light, the podcast for lightworkers and spiritual entrepreneurs to get tips and inspiration to launch their light in the world via their sacred business. I'm your host, Coach Bianca from FuelYourMagic.com. Are you seeking ways to raise your vibe to rise in your business? If so, keep on listening. On this episode of Launching Light, I have a conversation with Jenn Morgan. She's a crystal luminary who combines her unique array of trained energy healing modalities with her unique knowledge of crystals to help women reclaim their authenticity so they can become empowered and live with purpose. Jenn is the author of Crystals for Mom, a guide to help moms everywhere use crystals to parent consciously, cultivate moments of balance daily, and ease their children through the stresses of life. She's a 500-hour experienced registered yoga teacher, a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider, a life coach, and a crystal healer. She is trained in many energy healing practices from Reiki to integrated energy therapy. Jenn is also the founder of the Soul-Filled Yogi Metaphysical School, an online academy dedicated to helping lightworkers gain the skills and confidence they need to become credible healers. Two of Jenn's most popular courses include her Crystal Healing Certification Program and the Crystal Yoga Teacher Training Program. During our conversation, a few topics we touch on are having a multifaceted brand, the process of writing a book, seasonal and integrated self-care, and our favorite crystals for spiritual entrepreneurs. So without any further ado, here it is. Enjoy. Hi, Jenn. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So can you just briefly discuss how you first started your business and just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, my business, I've had multiple businesses before my current business, and I was actually more so going on my own spiritual walk at the time, and kind of like my business found me. It was and it was me sharing my experience. Really, it kind of started out as more of a blog, and I guess I wouldn't even have considered it as a business in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of just like me and what I was feeling, thinking, experiencing, and a place for me to share that. And it was like, this is my blog and this is what I'm writing. And a lot of it on Instagram, actually, that was where I preferred to write. So I would just write about what I was learning, what I was feeling, what I was thinking. And then I decided to go into yoga teacher training. And it was a lot of sharing that experience. And then it kind of just morphed over time into this more of I would say a community. So it went from, me blogging, writing, just sharing how I felt. And then people would, communicate with me oh, this resonates with me too. I'm experiencing this and just kind of resonate with my way of just sharing what I was experiencing and trying to be authentic. And sometimes putting really deep stuff out there. And, people resonated with that. And so it kind of became this community. And then I thought, okay, wouldn't it be cool if these people have a place, a safe place, right? It's not just commenting on my blog post or commenting on my Instagram, but what if there was a place to kind of bring everybody? And then I started a Facebook group, and my Facebook group was just again kind of a place to share and a place for everybody to share. And then I started really just educating people on the stuff that was working for me. And just sharing my experience with different metaphysical tools and spiritual tools that I was using in my walk. And then kind of from there, it just kept, it was next step. And then eventually you're like, whoa, right. I've got a full blown business. That's why I kind of tell people Rome wasn't built in a day. It's very, alluring to say okay, I want a business and I'm going to go about it in these regimented ways and full force. But from my personal experience, it happens over time, and that's what creates a firm foundation, not jumping right off the gun. And it's kind of taking your time and letting things steer you, as well as just kind of, being authentic. So, my business kind of started as me sharing, and then hey, let's put together a group where people can be. And then, okay, let me put together some educational resources. And I continued that in blog posts. And then I said, hey, let me take these blog posts. I think I could make courses out of this. If I just beef
Mhm.
this up and add stuff to this, and create some framework for methodology, like this is what people want. And, every step of the way, it was really just communicating with that audience. Like, what do you guys need? What do you guys want? Where are you at in your walk? And allowing people to collaborate with me. And then it kind of just worked, I guess. Although I do have a business background too. So there's
Mhm.
that. And that stuff does come into play. But I think at that point, that stuff was pretty organic for me.
Mhm.
So that did help though too.
So how long do you think it took you to start from when you started blogging to now? Like what time frame is that?
So I started doing the blogging, like more so like the personal type stuff. I would say in 2013, it must have been 2013. I kind of dabbled with it in 2012, and I actually had like two different kind of ideas for like what my blog was going to be, and kind of Soul-Filled Yogi, which is kind of the kind of mother brand, I suppose, of my
Mhm.
business. Edged out the other one. And so I just stuck with that. And yeah, so 2013, it's taken me since then to get to this point. So what, 7 years?
Wow.
Not
So
not not
can you,
built in a day.
oh, exactly. Can you describe like the different aspects of your business? Because I know that you did coaching. I don't know if you still do. And then you have your courses and like,
Mhm.
what are all the facets of your business?
Yeah, so I kind of like my brand is, I have my Jenn Morgan, which is me, as
Mhm.
just myself as a brand, and then under that is Soul-Filled Yogi, which is it's essentially my lifestyle brand, and I have courses. So I have I don't know, I don't know the exact number right now, because I sometimes I get into these waves where I'm just like creating everything, like I kind of ride the wave.
Mhm.
And so I think I have somewhere between like 7 to 10 courses, and those all pretty much are self-run on platform. So, they run in the background, and I've kind of created systems for that. And then I do coaching, and then I have my book, and I've done some different things over the course of time. I started out with crystal sales, so that was like in the very beginning, and some products. So, I had like an online shop. I don't do that so much anymore, just because it's a little bit time consuming to source all those things and to ship all those things.
Mhm.
But so like since then, my products basically are just the book, and I have a deck of cards as well. And then sometimes I do like group programs, or like kind of full moon monthly type subscription, I would say, like a subscription group, a special group for people. So that's primarily the different, I would say like it's probably 3 different tiers is kind of how I look at it.
Wow, that's
Physical
pretty
products,
complex.
online, and then coaching and group coaching. So
Wow. That's multifaceted, really.
yeah, yeah, and like, and it's funny is like a lot of the spiritual entrepreneurs too, we find like we are very multifaceted. So it's not
Mhm.
only just that there's a foundation, a tiered like foundation to the business and different categories, but also to the educational matter is
Right.
very vast. Like I never found it resonated with me to just stick to one thing. I know
Mhm.
I had been told so many times over the years by coaches or business coaches or whomever, oh, well, if you just stick to, certain niche, like it's going to be stronger.
Right.
And while that might be true, it might be true. It just never resonated with me to be that person, because that is not authentic to my personal walk. It's not that I
Right.
just use crystals, right? It's not that I just do this or just do that. Like I'm a very like seasonal human being. So
Mhm.
different things are very like, I kind of go with what resonates with me at the time. So
Mhm.
I never really found it like would be beneficial to kind of like niche down and dilute like what I'm capable of. So it's multifaceted in multiple senses of different types of offerings plus many different topics as well.
Right. Well, I see it like your business is really the definition of a personal brand because you're bringing all of you to it.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing. And it makes it kind of difficult. And I'm sure you're not the only one where someone says, well, what do you do? And you're like,
that is the worst question to answer.
I hate that question.
Yes, I can tell you that when people ask me that, it's you can probably see a moment that, like, even now it's been years and many successes and like there's nothing to be like scared about, like talking about my brand. But you can see a moment of like panic, like what deer do right before they run. And it's like, well, that's a loaded question, sir.
Yeah.
But usually now, luckily with the book, it's very easy for me to just blanket say like, oh, I'm an author, especially too with the spiritual world. Like, you don't know how much people understand and you don't want to intimidate them. It's funny because I used to think of it like, oh, well, you don't know who's going to be receptive to this or whatever. And I've realized that more over time, it's actually that they just don't understand. And so it's not that it's not received to explain, right. But if you go too much in depth and that person has no awareness of the spiritual world or anything like that, it kind of scares them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because they've never been exposed to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm an author. Do you want to hear like about crystals? And that's right. Kind of like a bridge,
Yeah, that's your doorway in, like.
Yeah. And people are not they're not scared of crystals as much,
Right. Yeah. Crystals have gone a little bit more mainstream now. So it's a little bit more understood. Of course, people have a lot of preconceived ideas about them. Some people think that they're hooey or whatever, but and other people are really strongly believe in them. But it's an easy way in for sure. So you mentioned your book a couple of times. That's Crystals for Mom, right? I read your book and I read it over a weekend. I had a hard time putting it down. I loved it. So I did want to ask you about that. I wanted to ask you about the writing process and how that was for you. And also if you feel that it's beneficial for someone to write a book if they feel that they can for their business, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So I would say first, the writing process and the publishing process and the process of writing a book in general is so different per the different factors that you're working with. So whether somebody wants to write a book and they want to self-publish, or they're trying to find a publisher, or they have an agent that's trying to find a publisher, those experiences across the board are so different. And that's usually the three different ways to bring a book to light. Is either you decide, okay, I'm going to self-publish this, or I'm going to hire an agent, which is a ton of money. I'm not going to, sugarcoat that. And then that person is like essentially like you're a business manager in some senses. They're hunting down publishers. They're trying to knock on their doors. They're trying to get it published, right? And then you have people who go, themselves and are contacting publishers. And I will be the first one to say that my process was probably easier than most. I actually do have a few friends that are writers, and they have experienced the opposite of what I have. So I had a publisher that found me and found my brand and wanted me to write a book for them. I got to skip the getting an agent. And I had said for years, I had put it out there, like just manifestation wise, like I want to write a book. I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And the funny thing is I just kept procrastinating on it. And I think finally the universe was sick of me saying it and not doing anything. Seriously. And then it was really funny because I got contacted and I didn't even see the email, and the email went to my spam. And she reached out again. And finally, the second time, for some reason, it did not go to spam. So I would have like the universe was trying, and it was like, it was a miss for some time. And then it was like, Jenn, write a freaking book, So I kind of like got thrown into this process that the universe was like, just do it. And we're not getting no more excuses.
No more fooling around.
So, yeah, exactly. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. the process of like, okay, publisher comes to you, if that is the case, not in the other situations, but in my case, the process of that to having a book is a long process, but in my experience was a short process because they had a timeline. So it was a very condensed version of what somebody would actually experience, because they came to me, and I think it was like roughly December, and they said, we want a book by, they wanted it by, I think, like April 1st or something like that. Now,
Whoa.
before you even write the book, you need to plan out your content, submit table of contents, and then you need to create all these, like sample writing, so they can see your writing style and your voice and all these things. So before you even get the approval to go write the book, you've probably gone back and forth with the editor and the publishing company for like, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7, 10 times. And okay, we need this now. Now we want to see this, because they wanted to see like, okay, can she write? How much editing are we going to have to do? And is she right for the project? Which, by all means, those are good things to consider. But you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in these processes for quite a while. It's like table of contents, then sample writing, then we want to, have you write the first chapter. Okay, now we don't like this. Can you re-edit this? They want to see how you're doing in the editing process, because I'm not an editor, but I can tell you, I would hate to like get a book and then have to revamp the whole thing. That would not be fun. So especially with the time was of the essence, they wanted to make sure that I could organize my thought and write in a way that wasn't going to take that much editing.
Right.
So by the time I even started writing the book was while I was under contract was February. It was probably mid-February, and they wanted it by April 1st.
Oh my goodness.
So this is a how many chapter book? I think there's like 20 something. I don't know. There's so many.
I have it right here. So let's take a look. I have it right here.
How many chapters? I don't know. A lot of chapters. But so you're writing it was a very like focus on this because it has to get done. And so you have deadlines too, then like the first chunk of the book's due. Now the second chunk of the book is due. And so I think I actually ended up turning it in early because I wanted enough time for back and forth if there was a lot of back and forth after. And they only came back once with minor edits, which was kind of a big accomplishment. I feel like it's a big accomplishment. And I felt really good about that, because it's like, wow, the editing process of editing your own writing is actually very difficult. And I feel like that's one of the things that I actually excel at. So it was kind of like a pat on the back to me, because it's like, you wrote under pressure, you had to hunker down. Like I have 2 children. I know. I traveled twice during that time. I was kind of all over the place and still put the time forward to get it done, and then barely had any edits. It was mainly word selection. So it was like, it was more like, okay, this word, does the spiritual audience actually understand what that word is, or is it just your terminology? Because that happens, It's like if I was to say something like woo-woo, would you know what that is? Depending on who you are. Maybe not. Kind of that
exactly.
type of thing. So that was
mainly
that.
Everyone in the spiritual community knows what woo-woo means.
Yeah, but some people this book is a lot of people who are beginners. We're gonna get their hands on it. So it's a guide where there's a lot for people who have been in this world for a while, and there's a lot for people to start from nothing and learn and figure it out. Without ever having to take a course or anything,
at first I was worried reading it, because I was like, I do know a lot about crystals myself.
I gotta know everything in it.
And I actually learned a lot of things from it. So I really appreciate the book a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can see how the beginner can also, it's written very simply for the beginner to understand. And that's very difficult to do.
It was a lot of thought process, like thinking, okay, like who is the end reader of this, who is the person who's going to benefit from this, and being able to cross those different audiences, because your person who's been doing this for 10 years and your person who is just in the beginning, they could be two different people, but there's a way to have everybody be able to gain something.
Exactly. What I also appreciate was the practicality of it, because especially for someone who has been using crystals for a long time, and you start to get into the weeds about things, you start using many crystals at once, or, you know, you're doing gridding and it gets very complicated. Whereas it's like, let's bring it back to the basics and let's get something from it, and let's make it quick and easy so that you can like practically do this in your life. You're busy, you have kids, you have a business. Let's make it practical. And that's what I really appreciated about the book. I think it's a fantastic book. I recommend it to everyone that I know. You know, you don't have to be a mom. I'm not a mom. And, you know, I learned a lot from it. And I think that, you know, anyone would learn something from it. So
yeah, I tried to make it
totally recommend.
Thank you. I tried to make it with, you know, knowing like not everybody's going to be a mom that's going to read it either. You know, it's like, it's very much broken up in a way that like even if you weren't a mom, like you're still like, it's about self-care is really what it boils down to. Like you're going to get the bonus chunk about like how this crystal can help your kid, or things that you can do in your household. But that's not specific to moms, you know, stuff you can do in your household. But you know, the whole like beginning chunk of every crystal in that book is really just self-care. Here's 10 different ways how to use the crystal, and here's how it's going to help you for self-care. It's about taking care of yourself. It's really what it boils down to. And everybody should take care of themselves.
Right.
You know?
And I also like how you split it up between the child and the mom or the reader, because their bodies are different than adults. So it's like, and I think moms are a little bit afraid, or parents are a little bit afraid. I'm going to introduce a foreign object to my child. Is it safe? So I really appreciate that you had that in mind. I mean, of course you're a mom, so that is something.
Well, yeah, and I tried to like even think to myself, like, okay, is there anything in this? Like, I'm very like detailed on like, okay, do not use this for this thing, right? It's like this, do not put this in water. Do not let your kid hold on to this, you know, because there are certain things like, yeah, that's probably not a good call, you know? So like I tried to be like very cautious in, okay, is there anything that's potentially hazardous or poisonous or anything, you know, that needs to be kept at a distance, or like also, hey, your kids are going to be really interested in crystals. Please don't let them put them in their mouths. You know, your basic stuff. They will choke. You know, so stuff like that. You know, it's like I try to think like,
and some of them look like candy.
Yeah,
some of them do look like candy. So let's be careful.
Colors. You know, and I can tell you from personal experience with my kids, the first place they put them, and I have two kids that are like the, you know, put everything in the mouth kids, both of them. I'm like, somehow I didn't manage to like duck that on either one of the kids. But the way that the crystals go, it's first thing, hand, mouth, right there. And I'm like, guys, not in the mouths. And they know exactly what I'm saying too, you know, like, get the crystals out of your mouth. But I don't keep any at like hands, you know, reach that if they did put it in their mouth for a few seconds is a problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kind of stuff I try to like, okay, what have my kids done? Because they do
it's
all
very
the
helpful.
things.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, like I said, I'm not a mom, but I could see how it was written and how that was taken into account. So I appreciated that too.
But even animals, same thing applies. Like if you have dogs, cats.
Yes. Exactly. So yeah, you kept a lot of that stuff in mind, which I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. You know, and I really appreciated that. So you had mentioned you had mentioned a lot about self-care in your book, which I'm really into. So that was the part of the book that I enjoyed the most. So what are your favorite self-care practices or tools that you use for yourself?
So like I said, like I'm a very like seasonal person. So I kind of like have just fallen into like a flow of you know, what resonates with me, I guess, per season. So like usually in the winter time, I take a lot of like full moon baths and stuff like that. And just as just a time for me to like shut off and to do like basically like some detox. So like I do like Epsom salts, I put that in the book. just to kind of like, I find like winter is a time like when it's, it's like you need to like go internal a little bit. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
way of, okay, what do I no longer need? It's kind of like, think about what plants do, right? They like are conserving. They're conserving in the winter. Like they're trying to, not expend all their energy because they know spring's coming. So it's kind of same vibe, it's like I follow that, like, I take my baths, I try to detoxify, like what do I no longer need, and like kind of do some like self-reflection on that. And then when spring comes, I right now I spend pretty much all of my time gardening. And I think gardening is, I don't care what anybody says, in my world it is self-care, it
Mm-hmm.
is healing, it's grounding.
Yeah,
You're
it's
in
very
nature,
grounding.
you're touching the ground, you're touching the earth. If you can especially do it with like no distractions, like you can really just like be present like with the plants.
Mm-hmm.
And also, things like finding out what's on your property, finding out what's on your land, and learning how to use those things in different ways. That's connecting with nature. So spring to me is like a more like a grounding time, and winter to me is more of like that self-reflective and more of like that intuitive time. Um, and then when you kind of get to summer, like I start to do more stuff around the new moon in summer
Mm-hmm.
than I do the rest of the year. Probably because winter, it's darker. So like the full moon seems to resonate with me more, and it's lighter in the summer. So the new moon, where, there's no light from the moon, kind of resonates with me more. So I do like some kind of, a lot of like more so crystal stuff in the summer. And I also do like care for my crystals in the summer. When we lived at our old house, I used to take a lot of the crystals like into the creek and like
Mm-hmm.
leave them there for like a whole day. Obviously, the ones that can handle the water.
Right.
But then I would also like focus on like cleansing, charging, all that kind of stuff, but kind of like using my crystals more towards summer. And then fall, is again, it's like you're prepping to slow down. So you're kind of starting to go like introverted, but yeah, fall's actually kind of probably a more so like a mix of all three, because I do
Mm-hmm.
baths in the fall and I do work with the crystals in the fall and I'm still gardening in the fall. But
Right.
it's like prep. It's like prepping, you know. Um, but yeah, I do all sorts of random things like throughout like days too,
Mm-hmm.
that I like forget about. I do cards and I work with my pendulum, and but I do those things more so now. It's like when I am like my brain's too overstimulated and I can't like contact my intuition as clearly, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, I need some guidance here. You know what I mean? Like, but when I'm doing all the other things, I find that I'm pretty clear and can just intuitively pretty much tap in and keep myself at like a good like wavelength to just be receptive as I go about my day.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting concept that, if like you're doing gardening, you really don't need anything else. You're present in the moment. But when you
Oh
actually
yeah.
use external tools like a pendulum or your cards or something, it's because your mind is racing, you can't focus. So that's when you would go
Yeah.
to the tool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Exactly. And so like it's like I think, like say, if you're like a beginner and you're just starting your kind of spiritual walk, like you're I think the best thing is like just explore and see what works, and then it will become second nature. Certain things will become second nature. So it's always like a tough question for me to answer, like
Right. It
what do
depends
you
on the person.
do? Yeah, because like my stuff that I do is so intuitive and it's so natural to me now that I don't think about it that often. And like I said, it's like it's almost like it's happening naturally and simultaneously to like my life as I go about. But like the more so the things that I notice is like, okay, I haven't like stopped long enough to like be able to like intuitively tap in. So like now I need my cards or now I need my pendulum. Where like in the beginning you're like it's almost like you need to like detox from all the conditioning and all the crap that you've been fed like your whole entire life, and you're like exploring with like cards or crystals or whatever, like a million different things. And that's why I have courses on all things, because all those things help me, yoga or whatever. And like
Hmm.
then you learn to be mindful, and then you detox from all the crap you've been fed, and then you find your own intuition, and it's more easy every day, it's like, you don't have to try that hard. So your level of spirituality just happens with your integrated life. Like, it's not even like
Right.
a separate thing anymore, unless
Right.
you're like me. And sometimes you get like a bajillion ideas in your head and you're like, do them all, yay, and have too much coffee, and then you can't focus. Like, I tell everybody, like, I'm the biggest spaz in the world, like, so sometimes I just get overloaded because I have a lot of creative ideas in my head.
Right.
And then I need a pendulum, or I need cards, because I'm like, just all over the place.
Yeah. Too much coming in all at once. You gotta like focus
Yeah,
and let it
it's tough, man.
flow
Being
in.
a creative person it's challenging, because, like, one minute I'm like, I have this idea, and then I have this idea, and now I'm in this place that, like, I basically moved into a blank canvas, and
Hmm.
it's like, what do you want to do with this space? And then you're like, whoa, this is like, there's so many options.
Yeah, it's overwhelming because you have so many options.
Exactly. So when I
Right.
first
Right.
moved, I was using cards and stuff a lot. Now I'm
Hmm.
starting to, chill out
You're
a little bit.
settling in, so you don't need them as much, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Well, since you are a crystal expert, I did want to ask you this question. Um, what crystals do you feel are must-haves for an entrepreneur or a spiritual entrepreneur? Because I feel that spiritual entrepreneurs need a little bit more,
Yeah.
even because they're working with a lot of energy.
Yeah. So especially, I would say somebody that's coaching,
Hmm.
any type of coaching in capacity like that, when you're working with other people. And okay, so most spiritual people who are doing coaching, at least the ones that I've been around, and me personally too, like, I hate admitting it, because just hate admitting it, but very empathic people. Like, we wouldn't
Hmm.
be trying to help people if we didn't care about people. And we care about people because we can resonate with them, and we can feel what they're feeling, because
Hmm.
we have that ability. You know what I'm saying? Like, otherwise, I can tell you, from being somebody who's like, I don't have feelings, like, I can try to disassociate from my feelings like all day long. But I'm the biggest empath. That's why.
Hmm.
Right. So it's
Hmm.
actually just a defense technique. So if you're somebody who is coaching in any type of capacity like that, protecting your energy is huge, because you're not going to be, and self-care. So, like, you're
Hmm.
not going to be useful to other people if you're burning yourself out, or if you're
Exactly.
not taking care of yourself, or if you're just sucking in all this energy. And especially if you're working with multiple people, think of, like, you have this person, and they're stressed out because this happened. Then you have the next person after them, they're stressed out because this happened, or whatever, or they're coping with things in their life, or coping with trauma, or like, you're trying to help them bring up to surface, like, stuff that's been old deep-seated patterns. All of that stuff is heavy. It
Yep.
has an energetic footprint that's heavy. And then you get deeper into spirituality, and you get, like, things like energy attachments, and like deep energetic patterns that are actually, like, more than habit, but they're, like, attached to that person, like people who feel victimized, stuff like that, even
Hmm.
heavier than that. So if you're working with people like that, you need to be protecting yourself. So I would say the two crystals for that, like, I would say black tourmaline, like, always have that by you when you're working with people. And then it's going to get, at some point, especially because it was like, it's like putting it in high traffic, basically,
Right.
like, it's going to get worn out. And when it's done and you feel it's worn out, you can probably sense it. Like, just go bury it. Like, just don't even try to clear it and cleanse it. Just go bury it, buy a new piece. It's like, you don't even have to, they're cheap, and
Hmm.
the earth will take care of it. And then not to mention, even just burying it in the earth is protective. Like, you could
Right.
protect your property by doing that. I've done that on all the properties I've been on.
Right.
um and just, you don't have to spend giant, like, huge money on, like, giant chunks of it, like, so that's the first one. And then if you feel like you've kind of, like, picked up something from somebody in a coaching aspect, which is like, you can notice if you're empathic, you, like, okay, you go into your coaching call and you're, like, perfectly fine. And then you come
Hmm.
out and you're, like, feel like your energy's drained, or, like, your emotion has shifted to, like, align with that person's emotion that they had. Then you've picked up something from them.
Yep.
Um, and then for that, I would say, like, obsidian. So, like, there's this thing called, oh gosh, what are they, like, scraping, and you
Hmm.
use, like, an obsidian arrowhead. And so I
Hmm.
would look that up. That technique is helpful for those people. And then just general spiritual entrepreneurs. I always say that citrine is great for entrepreneurs because it's an abundance magnet, you know.
Right.
So it's like you want to attract anything, you use citrine, you know. So you can attract people, you can attract financial, you know, stability, whatever you want to attract. It helps you with that. So it'll help you with your business, and you could like even like amplify it and put some like selenite by it or some, you know, like clear quartz or something like that. But they've been doing this for like I feel like centuries, but that's probably, you know, maybe it's like hundreds of years more so. But you know, to put a piece of citrine in the cash wrap,
Right.
if you have a store or a physical place, or in the back left corner of your house, or if you have an office that you work out of, in the back left corner of your office, even is fine too. So those are definitely the ones I would suggest for kind of just across the board.
Okay, so black tourmaline, black obsidian, and citrine. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally agree with all that.
Yeah.
Another question I wanted to ask you. Any advice that you would give to yourself way back when, before you started your business? What would it be?
Before I started my business, or when
like
I was
right before
thinking
you
about
started,
it.
like right, exactly, like before you got into business. Like, what
Yeah,
advice would
probably
you
just
give
don't
yourself?
be a spaz. Don't be a spaz. Like, so, you know, like being a creative person, like there's a lot of times where you want to just like, okay, I got to do this now, or like you see what other people are doing and you think you have to do that, right? Like there's a lot of that. Like, you know, you see your idol or you see somebody in business. You know, for me in the beginning, it was like, ooh, Gabby Bernstein, you know, she's so cool, and you know, you want to drink the Kool-Aid and you want to do what so and so's doing, and it's not necessary. Like I can tell you that you know, like you will go full force until you're blue in the face, and then you will realize like doing what resonates with me is what I should be doing, not doing what other people are doing. It's like I always remind myself, like, stay in your own lane. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
you have strengths that other people don't have, and you're not going to be that other person. And you might not even have a following as big as that other person. I can tell you, if I had a following as big as Gabby Bernstein, I would be not a very stable person. Like that would be too much. And the universe knows that. I love a small pocket of people that I love the crap out of. Like that's where my niche is. Like I have people that have followed me since the beginning, and I know them and I know their lives, and I've worked with them. They've taken my courses and they've taken coaching from me, and they come back because we have a relationship. Where somebody who's up on that other, you know, like other, you know, kind of other rung, they might not have that personal relationship with the people that I have, right? And they might not like that. I like that. I wouldn't like if I was, you know, like if I was where Gabby Bernstein is, you know, she's kind of like a spiritual household name. That probably freak me out. I'm not gonna lie. Because I'd be like, are there people stalking me? I am like a paranoid person, you know? Like, so you know, you don't waste time like comparing yourself to what other people are doing, or I need to do this because they're doing that, or following the trends even, really. Because the thing is, the trends will shift. Like there were times where I created stuff just because I thought like, oh, well, other people are doing this, and so it's a good idea. You know, it's different to want to do something. So know the difference, you know, between wanting and really feeling like this is intuitively led, or just like, shouldn't I just do this because everybody's doing it, or following the pack, or you know, comparing yourself. It's not even worth it, and it's distracting, and you're actually preventing yourself from walking down the path that you need to do the job that you're doing, which is it is doing something for the world. Like there's a bigger thing to it. Like I always think to myself, like I'm right where I need to be because I'm doing what I need to do. And even right now, like I'm mostly in a stage of like personal like retreating because of my lifestyle of moving and, you know, renovating a whole house and just all this craziness. But like still I'm doing what I need to be doing. I'm recovering for whatever job the universe decides to give me next. And so there's a time to be on and there's a time to be off. So basically, you know, you need to be able to like just step back sometimes.
Right.
And that's why I say don't be a spaz, you know, because you don't want, like, you know, it's like people that, like, you know, it's like they're just running and running and running and running and running,
Right.
and then they burn out and they're like, oh my gosh, why am I burning out? Like, and then they just keep running.
Yeah, the
And
entrepreneurial treadmill.
yeah, and that's entrepreneurs, right? Like, we're people that, like, we want to build things. We love to make change. You know, we love to build something from the ground up, and
Right. You just got to make
that
sure
takes
it's
a
your
lot.
own.
Yeah,
It's
and
your
it
own. You
takes a
have to
lot of
want it.
expenditure. Yeah, so, like, you know, if you need some time, like, give yourself some time and give yourself some space, and then you'll see, like, okay, I don't necessarily need to do that thing that everybody's doing. You know, I
Right.
want to do this. This is where my heart really is. So, like, I would just really tell myself, like, before you take a project on, step back, feel it
Great
out.
advice.
Is it you? Like, don't, like, you can try the coat on, but you don't need to wear every coat.
Yes.
Feel free to take it off. If it doesn't resonate with you, take the coat
Yeah.
off.
That was a tweetable.
Yeah, right?
That was good. That was very, very good. Very
Come up
true.
with random things sometimes, you know, and then I forget I've said them. So it's a good thing this is recorded.
Go back and take some notes of your own
I had
advice.
one time, like I don't remember who it was, but somebody in one of my groups, or when I think it was a group coaching program, and she's like, oh, I think it was one of the coaching clients, and she was like, you say so many things and they're so, like, quotable, and, like, you and she would say it back to me, like, you said this to me, and I was like, I did. So she started, like, actually making, like, a ledger of these things. I'll have to
That should
get
be your
back with
next
her.
book, girl. That should be your
I
next
know,
book.
it'll just be, like, helpful random quotes that Jen has said randomly, and I'll tell her to add that one to it. She could be my ghostwriter, like, if you've been my ledger, like, you know.
That's funny.
Next book, simple, done.
Oh, that's funny. So you had mentioned that you're in, like, a retreat kind of mode right now because you have a new house and you're renovating and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have anything that's upcoming, any projects or offerings coming up in your business that you'd like to share?
I mean, I really want to write a second book. I already have a table of contents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've had it in. It's kind of like a, what do you call it? A brain baby? It's not, like, you know, it's like there, but I'm waiting for the right time. So
Okay.
that's definitely. I really enjoy the writing process. I really love that process. So that's where I would like to, you know, take my next step. Obviously, you know, there's things that come down to it, like, you know, publisher, you know, what they think, and with everything kind of going on right now in the world, it's like, I think everybody's like, we're a little on pause. So right now it's kind of like that's there, and when the time feels right, again, like I said, I've learned over time, like, Rome wasn't built in a day. Step back. You don't have to do it, like, yet, just know it's coming. So it's like, I know that's coming and I'm ready for it. And so, you know, it's kind of putting that out to the universe, like, hey, it's here. Like, when it's time to pull the trigger, like, just give me the sign and we'll get going, kind of thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So that's the next thing. And you know, it's, and right now it's like I have time to focus on, like, my family, my kids, and you know, random other things, and, you know, I have side projects and stuff like that I do, and but it's nice because right now it's like I can kind of dabble and I can kind of just be where I am because I know the next project is coming, and I think a lot of us too, like, you know, intuitively, like, for a long time I knew something was coming in the world, and then this whole situation, you know, right now with the pandemic, and then that happened, and it was like, oh, this is what I felt. And so,
Right.
you know, my intuition has never proved me wrong. So I know I'm going to know when the next wave is, you know, when the next time is to work on the project. And so I'm just waiting for the signal, really. And I'm fine in the waiting process because I can focus on gardening and kids and just being a person, and that makes me happy, you know.
Awesome.
Simple.
Awesome. I really
Really
look forward to
simple.
your next book. Maybe we can
Thank
have
you.
you back on to discuss that when it's, out there and published. I would love to
Yeah,
have you back on to talk about that. That would be
thank
awesome.
you.
So what's the best way for someone to connect with you if they'd like to, see what you're all about, get your vibe, maybe work with you further when you have offerings out there?
Yeah, they can just find me on my website, which is soulfilledyogi.com. And it's like there's contact forms and all that kind of stuff, but you could just
Hmm.
email me. Honestly, I don't mind people reaching out. I have people reach out for random things all the time, and I love that. I love uh, getting to interact with people and helping people along the way. So you can just email me at soulfilledyogi@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram too. You can comment or send me a message and read what I have to say about random things. And I call my authentic shares. Like I hold Instagram very kind of sacred because it was
Mm.
kind of the place that I've always preferred to write like anything on. So you can find me at Jenn_Morgan, and yeah, that's the place to find me.
Okay, perfect. I'll list all of that contact information on the show notes. And I would like to thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I had a great time and I learned a lot from you and I loved your book.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to talk to you again on a future podcast.
Yeah, thank you
Can't wait
so
for your
much.
next book.
Yeah, thank you. I know I should get to it eventually, but the universe, it has its own timing. You gotta go by that. But
That's okay.
thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Just keep me posted when it comes out. If there's a
Absolutely.
pre-order, I will pre-order it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this week's episode of Launching Light. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jenn as much as I did. If you love her vibe as much as I do, give her a follow. Check out the show notes for her contact information, as well as how to get a hold of her awesome book, Crystals for Mom. Join me on the podcast next week to get more tips, tools, and practices to help you make your business as magical as you are. Now get out there and launch your light. Have a magical week.